Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. No words, no return, just time. And my friends, it's killing them slowly. Hey folks, imagine this. You're not a person anymore. You're a storm that left without warning. You didn't crash everything on your way out. You just disappeared into the sky. Quiet, cold, powerful. And now, they're standing there, umbrella in hand, waiting for the rain that never came. That's what silence feels like to them. Not peace, not space, confusion, restlessness. A storm that didn't destroy them, but still left everything soaked in uncertainty. They expected noise, a dramatic goodbye, one final message begging for understanding. But instead, you gave them nothing. Not because you were weak, but because you were done. You didn't need to prove your worth. You didn't need to beg for clarity. You just chose silence, and in doing that, you chose yourself. See, they thought your silence would fade. They thought you'd eventually come running back to explain everything. But what they didn't see coming was this. Time isn't healing them, it's exposing them. Every day you don't speak, every day you don't return, that silence gets a little heavier on their chest. And now it's not just quiet, it's haunting. They go about their day like nothing's changed, but something has. That voice in their head won't shut up. That ache in their gut won't leave. And the person they thought they had wrapped around their finger, gone, just gone. No message, no warning, no closure, just absence that echoes louder than any argument ever could. You see, when you walk away without a word, you don't just remove yourself, you remove their control. And when control disappears, the panic begins. At first, they tell themselves it's fine, that they wanted this, that you were replaceable. But over time, those lies begin to crack. And what's left? Regret. Not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece. You didn't vanish to get attention. You vanished because your peace became more important than their confusion. You didn't owe them an ending. You owed yourself a beginning. And in that silence, while they spiral, you rise, you evolve, you become something they were never ready for. A man who doesn't explain himself to people who didn't value him. They scroll, they post, they wait for a reaction. But your silence, it's louder than any reply, and that's driving them mad. Because nothing messes with someone's mind like a mystery they can't solve. And you, my friend, became that mystery the moment you chose not to play the game. So, if this message speaks to your soul, if you felt the power of silence and how it exposes what noise tries to cover up, type it in the comments right now. Silence wins always. Let the world know what you already feel deep inside. And don't forget, press that like button and subscribe for more powerful truths like this, because this isn't the end of your story. This is the start of your rise. Stay with me. 1. The silence they thought they could handle. You don't have to explode to be powerful. Sometimes the quietest exit leaves the loudest echo. They thought they could handle it. Your silence. Your disappearance, your complete refusal to play their game. They convinced themselves that you would lash out, seek closure, or at least leave behind a few final words. But you didn't. You left with nothing but silence, and that silence is now haunting them more than any argument ever could. At first, they called it peace, a break, a breather. They told themselves it was relief. But that's only because they didn't understand what your silence actually meant. They didn't realize that your silence wasn't a pause, it was the end. And not just the end of a conversation, but the end of their illusion of control. You weren't being passive, you were being precise, surgical, a ghost with purpose. Imagine a forest after a wildfire, still, quiet. The fire is gone, but the memory of the heat still lingers in the air. That's you. They don't see flames anymore, but the silence burns hotter than anything they expected. They thought silence would feel empty, but instead, it's full of questions, full of what-ifs, full of the realization that you're not just quiet, you're gone. They thought they had time. They thought you'd reach out. They thought you'd break. But what they failed to understand is that a man who embraces silence has already walked through his breaking point and chose not to stay there. You didn't disappear out of weakness. You disappeared because explaining yourself became a waste of your energy. You knew that if they really valued you, they would have never put you in the position where silence had to become your only answer. And now the questions begin to consume them. Why didn't he say anything? Why didn't he try? Why is he so quiet? They expected a scene, a breakdown, a desperate call to make things right. What they got was nothing. And that nothing, it's heavy. It sits on their chest in the quiet hours of the night. It wakes them up before the sun rises. It creeps into every silence they used to enjoy. You became the thing they can't stop thinking about, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. And maybe you're sitting there wondering if you did the right thing. Maybe a part of you still feels like you should have explained yourself, tried harder, or found the perfect words to make them understand. Let me break that lie for you, right now. If they needed an explanation, they weren't listening in the first place. If they needed more words, they never heard the ones you already gave. Some people don't change because you speak louder. They change because you finally go quiet. It's hard, I know. Silence isn't easy. It takes strength to say nothing when everything in you wants to scream. It takes courage to walk away without slamming the door. But that's the difference between a man seeking validation and a man who's finally found his peace. Your silence isn't a punishment. It's a decision. It's a declaration of self-worth that says, I'm no longer available for the same cycle. They thought they could handle it. They were wrong, because now they're not just losing you, they're losing the version of themselves that felt safe knowing you were always a message away. And the truth is, you're not coming back. Not this time. There's no speech, no apology, no dramatic return, just time. And it's already starting to break them down. So, if you feel this in your bones, if you've walked away without fireworks, without begging, and simply chose to protect your peace, then type it in the comments right now. Silence is strength. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your silence isn't weakness. It's power in its purest form. And this is only the beginning. Because if you think the silence is destroying them now, just wait until we talk about what time will do next. Stay with me. 2. The clock starts ticking the moment you walk away. You never really know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. The second you went silent, the countdown began. Not a countdown toward reconciliation, not a countdown to closure, but a slow, invisible ticking clock, one that only they can hear. At first, it's nothing. Just another day without a message, another hour without your voice. But as that time stretches, the air shifts, the silence grows teeth, and the seconds they once took for granted, they start to feel like they're dragging knives across their skin. See, my friends, when you walk away without a word, you hand over something they never thought they'd fear. Time. And not just time itself, but time without you. That's the part they didn't prepare for. They thought distance would bring clarity, that your absence would make you chase, that the space would weaken you. What they didn't realize is that time has always been on your side, because time doesn't just pass, it reveals. It reveals what comfort used to feel like, what presence once meant, what they lost, not in a moment, but in the quiet decay of days that no longer include you. Think about it like this. Imagine walking into a familiar room and realizing something's missing. You can't quite place it at first. Maybe it's the sound, maybe the warmth. Something subtle. You brush it off. But then, over time, that room feels colder, emptier. You look around and finally realize the thing that made it feel like home is gone. That's what your absence does. It starts off as a small shift, then it grows. And before they know it, the whole world they built starts to feel unfamiliar, incomplete, uncomfortable. They told themselves they needed space. They believed walking away would bring peace. But they forgot that peace isn't the absence of someone, it's the presence of something deeper. And now that you're no longer there, time is peeling back the layers, slowly, mercilessly, because when someone has had consistent access to your energy, your stability, your presence, and they lose it, time turns from a friend into a tormentor. Every quiet morning, every long drive, every night spent scrolling in silence, it hits differently when you're not just gone, but silent. Here's where most men fall apart. Right here, in this phase, they start to doubt themselves. They mistake the silence for failure. They convince themselves that time is making them forgettable, that maybe they should say something, check in, reach out. But that's the trap, isn't it? The fear of being forgotten, the lie that says, if you don't remind them of your worth, they'll erase you. But let me tell you the truth. You don't have to remind anyone of your value when you left it carved into their life. Your presence wasn't background noise. It was a heartbeat, a rhythm they didn't even realize they relied on until it stopped. And now, with each tick of the clock, the silence grows louder. Not for you, for them. You've shifted, you've adapted, you're building. But them? They're still sitting in the wreckage of what they thought they could handle. And every minute you stay quiet is another minute they're forced to sit with the truth they tried to avoid. Time is ruthless, yes, but it's fair. It gives every person the same gift, a chance to reflect. And now, as they sit there trying to fill the silence with distractions, with empty noise, with temporary highs, none of it sticks, because time has a way of exposing what noise tries to cover. And the longer they go without you, the more obvious it becomes. The clock didn't start for you. It started for them. So if you've been holding the line, if you've been sitting in that sacred space of stillness, letting time do its quiet work, then say it with me. Type it in the comments right now. Time reveals all. Let it be known, to them, to yourself, to anyone watching from the sidelines, that you're not counting the minutes, you're counting the growth. You're not looking back, you're not waiting. You're moving forward with the one ally that never lies, time. And we're just getting started. Because when time moves in silence, it doesn't just change people, it breaks illusions. Stay with me. 3. When familiarity turns into ghosts. The most painful goodbyes are the ones that are never said and never explained. There was a time when you were everywhere. Your presence was a constant, something they could always count on. Your words, your actions, your energy, they became the background to their everyday life. It wasn't something they ever had to acknowledge. You were simply there. But now, everything that was once familiar has become a ghost. Not because you physically disappeared, but because the essence of who you were has left a void so deep it can never be filled by anyone or anything else. They wake up to an empty bed. They walk into rooms that once felt warm with your laughter and your touch, and now all they feel is cold air where you once stood. At first, it wasn't so bad. The quiet was bearable. They told themselves they needed space, that it was healthy to have time apart. But that's the thing about silence. It's not empty. It's full. Full of thoughts they tried to push aside, full of feelings they thought they could suppress. And now every corner of their world reminds them of what's missing. The familiarity of your presence has transformed into something unrecognizable. Think about it like this. You walk through a neighborhood you haven't visited in years. The streets are the same, the buildings are still standing, but somehow it doesn't feel like home anymore. There's a distance between you and the place that used to be comfortable. It's the same, but different. That's what happens when you walk away. Your absence doesn't just create a physical space, it creates a mental one. A space where everything that once felt like normal, everything that was once part of their routine, becomes a constant reminder of what's lost. And no matter how hard they try to ignore it, the memories keep flooding in. The worst part? They don't even know how to handle it. They can't reach out for the comfort they once had. The things that used to make them feel safe now leave them with an empty ache. They thought they could get by without you. They thought they could handle the distance. But familiarity is a dangerous thing. When you're used to something being a part of your life, it becomes a part of your identity. And when that thing disappears, it's not just an absence. It's a fragmented sense of self. They think they can fill the void with distractions, a new project, a new person, a new place to go. But nothing compares. Nothing fills the space you once occupied in their life. The more they try to replace you, the more they realize how irreplaceable you were. And that realization stings. It cuts deeper than any breakup, deeper than any argument. It's the cold truth that's becoming unbearable with every passing day. The very things that used to make them feel alive now remind them that your presence isn't just absent. It's gone. It's not just the loss of your physical self. It's the absence of what you brought to their world. But here's where it gets tricky. The longer they try to ignore the emptiness, the harder it becomes to avoid it. They can't shake the feeling that something is missing, but they won't admit it. They tell themselves that they're fine, that they're better off without you. They keep telling themselves that the quiet is okay, that they've found their peace. But the truth is that the silence is killing them. Because familiarity, once taken for granted, has now turned into a ghost that haunts them every single day. They can't escape it. They can't outrun it. And you? You've learned the lesson they still refuse to face. Familiarity isn't love, it's comfort. And when comfort turns into dependency, that's when everything breaks. When you left, you didn't just step away from them. You stepped away from the version of yourself that once felt obligated to constantly fill their needs, their expectations. You walked away from a dynamic that didn't serve you. And in doing that, you found your own sense of stability, your own sense of self. You no longer need to play the role they expected of you. You're not looking for their validation. You're not waiting for them to recognize your worth. So let them sit with the emptiness. Let them try to fill the gaps. Let them wrestle with their own reflection. Because the truth is, no matter what they do, nothing will ever bring back the real you. The version of you that gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left to offer. You're gone, and the space you left behind is irreplaceable. And that's the hardest truth for them to face. So if you've ever felt this kind of quiet, if you've ever been the one who left and watched them try and fail to fill your absence, type this in the comments right now. Nothing fills what's gone. Say it loud. Say it proud. Show the world that you know the value of your presence. And remember, no matter how hard they try, they can never replace what you gave. Stay with me, because we're about to dig deeper into what time does to them when they're left with nothing but their own reflection. 4. Their ego was loud. Now regret is louder. Ego is just the noise we create to avoid hearing the truth. When you walked away, they didn't flinch. They crossed their arms. They rolled their eyes. They whispered things like, "He'll be back," or worse, "He needs me more than I ever needed him." That wasn't strength. That was ego talking. Loud, arrogant, inflated ego. And for a while it worked. It gave them a sense of control. It helped them sleep at night. But ego, my friends, is a fragile thing. It's loud when it feels in charge. But when silence walks in, when time passes, and when you don't return, that ego starts to crack. And underneath it is something much louder, much heavier: regret. At first, they felt powerful. They thought your absence was just another move in a game they were winning. A little silence, a little distance. They figured you'd come crawling eventually, needing closure, needing validation, needing them. That's the story they told themselves. That's the fantasy ego fed them. But here's the catch. Fantasies collapse in silence. And reality waits in the shadows, patient and cruel, until it's time to step into the light. Now that you're gone, that fantasy is crumbling piece by piece. You're not reaching out, you're not explaining, you're not proving anything. You've gone quiet and stayed quiet. And the longer you remain still, the louder the regret gets. It starts as a whisper. Did I misjudge him? Then a question. Why hasn't he said anything? Then a full-blown storm. What have I done? Because here's what they never expected: for you to stop caring. For you to walk away with no performance, no breakdown, no attempt to fix what they broke. They thought your silence was a tactic, a phase, a moment of pride. But time has proven otherwise. You're not waiting in the wings. You've left the theater. And now the spotlight is on them, and the stage is empty. The regret doesn't hit all at once. It comes in waves. It shows up in the quiet hours of the night, in the moments when their friends leave, when the noise dies down, and they're left alone with their thoughts. That's when the ego has no armor. That's when the memories creep in, not just of you, but of how they handled you. The things they said, the ways they pulled away, the times you reached out and they shrugged it off like it meant nothing. They didn't lose a guy who begged. They lost a man who could have, but didn't. And that distinction, that's what haunts them. And you? Maybe part of you still wonders why they acted so confidently in the beginning, why they acted like letting go of you was easy, why they never looked back. Let me give it to you straight. Ego made them blind. It gave them a script that said, "I'm the one in control." It told them your silence meant weakness, that your detachment was temporary. But ego is a liar, and time is the truth. You're no longer a man trying to prove his worth. You're a man who already knows it. And when a man knows his worth, regret follows the ones who lost him, not the other way around. But here's where you've already won. You didn't break character. You didn't betray your peace to chase their chaos. You stood still in the storm and let them believe whatever they wanted to believe, because that's what Stoic strength looks like. You didn't need to scream. You didn't need to convince. You just let time peel the layers off their ego until it revealed what was really there all along: fear, insecurity, and now, regret. Let them carry it. That's not your burden anymore. You carried enough. You bent over backwards enough. You explained yourself enough. Now they get to sit with the silence and realize it wasn't just your presence that mattered, it was your absence that taught them everything. If this is your story, if you've ever walked away with calm and let their ego fall apart all on its own, then type it in the comments right now. Regret is louder. Let it echo. Let it remind the world that your power doesn't lie in your reaction. It lies in your ability to walk away without needing to be seen. Stay with me, because next, we're about to break down the part they fear the most, when your silence becomes the message they can't unhear. 5. No explanation becomes the message. Your silence will teach them more than your words ever could. They wanted you to explain. They were ready for the long paragraph, the final call, the speech where you poured your heart out one last time. They were prepared for closure, on their terms. Because let's be real, that's what they've always expected from you. That you'd do the emotional labor, that you'd hold their hand through the damage they caused, that you'd help them understand the weight of their own decisions while carrying your own heartbreak in silence. But this time, there was no speech, no breakdown, no long-winded summary of how things fell apart. You left quietly. You walked away with calm. And in that moment, whether they understood it or not, your silence became the message. No reaction, no reply, not a single effort to rewrite the ending. And that's what's eating them alive. Because they don't know what to do with it. People like that don't fear anger, they fear indifference. They know how to respond to chaos. They're used to slamming doors, emotional texts, dramatic conversations. But silence? That's a different kind of weapon. It doesn't show up to fight. It just walks out of the room and never returns. And now, they're left in that room alone, surrounded by questions with no answers. What does it mean when you say nothing? Why didn't you react? Wasn't it supposed to hurt you more? Why are you so calm? These questions aren't just floating in their mind, they're screaming. Every day that passes without a word from you is another day they spiral deeper into confusion. Your silence is forcing them to sit with everything they were trying to avoid, their actions, their choices, their own emptiness. Because when you don't send a message, they start writing their own stories. And that's when the truth starts cutting deeper than any response you could have given. You didn't give them closure. You gave them a mirror. And they hate what they see. They see someone who pushed away something real. They see someone who confused consistency with weakness. They see someone who played games with a person who never needed to play one back. And the truth is, they expected you to need closure more than they did. That's how sure they were that you couldn't let go. But now, every second you remain silent is proving just how wrong they were. You're not stuck in the past. You're not desperately seeking answers. You've accepted that not every chapter gets a final page. And that kind of peace, that terrifies them. Because when you don't explain yourself, they have no control over the narrative. And when they have no control, they start to question everything. Was I wrong? Did I push too far? Was he more valuable than I realized? Yes. Yes. And yes. But the beauty of your silence is that it never says these things out loud. It lets them arrive at the truth on their own, slowly, painfully, organically. They wanted an explanation to soothe their ego. What they got was emptiness that bruises it instead. And maybe you still feel the pull. Maybe a part of you wants to give them one final message, to clarify, to justify, to make it make sense. But you don't owe them that. You've said all you needed to say with your actions. Your silence isn't petty. It isn't passive. It's precise. It says, I've already said enough. I've already given enough, and now I give myself peace. And that peace, that's the part they'll never forget. Because you became the question that never got answered, the mystery that never got solved. And in a world where everyone wants closure tied up with a bow, you are the lesson that didn't give them one. If you've ever been there, if your silence said everything that needed to be said, then type it in the comments right now. Silence was the message. Say it proudly. Let it echo. Let it remind the world that not every goodbye needs a speech. Sometimes, the quietest walkaway leaves the deepest impact. Stay with me, because next, we're going to talk about what happens when your absence becomes a daily realization, and how that realization starts to undo everything they thought they understood. 6. Every day without you is a new realization. Some people don't realize what they had because they were too busy assuming it would always be there. The truth doesn't hit all at once. It doesn't come crashing down in some grand, dramatic moment. It shows up slowly, one day at a time, in the quiet spaces where they used to feel your presence. At first, they thought they were fine, maybe even free. Maybe they smiled a little too wide when you didn't message back. Maybe they even posted something extra loud, just to make sure you'd see how unbothered they were. But days turned into nights. Nights into silence. Silence into reflection. And now, that little smirk they wore with pride, it's starting to fade. Because each day without you brings a new realization, a new discomfort, a new ache they didn't prepare for. See, they thought you'd break first. They thought you'd be checking your phone, replaying old memories, looking for an excuse to reach out. They thought you'd fold. What they didn't expect was your peace, your stillness, your refusal to react. That's what's eating them alive now. Not the loss, not the breakup, but your silence. And worse, your comfort in it. Now, every morning feels different, not because the world changed, but because you're no longer in it. The routines they once shared with you have become lonely rituals. Making coffee doesn't taste the same. Driving to work feels empty. Even the music they used to blast without thinking. Now, every song is a landmine, and your name is hidden in every lyric. That's what time does. It doesn't just pass, it amplifies. It doesn't erase you, it magnifies you. Because the absence of something real always speaks louder than the presence of something fake. And every day they spend without you becomes another step deeper into that realization. That maybe they didn't just lose someone, maybe they let go of something irreplaceable. They won't say it, of course, not out loud. Pride won't let them. But their silence is no longer strength. It's struggle. It's a mask now, barely holding up under the weight of what they're starting to feel. They may look fine, they may act unfazed. But when the lights go out and no one's watching, the truth begins to breathe. You were not just someone, you were home, and now they can't find their way back. It's funny, isn't it, how they only start to appreciate the calm once the storm is gone. You were their anchor, and they never realized it, until they set themselves adrift. And now that they're out there in the emotional ocean with no compass, no direction, no you, the water feels colder, the waves feel heavier. The silence you left behind is no longer peaceful. It's loud, it echoes, and each echo whispers the same truth. You're not coming back. They underestimated you. They thought your silence was hesitation. They thought your calm meant confusion. But you weren't hesitating. You were healing. You weren't confused. You were finished. And now, every sunrise without your message, every evening without your presence, is slowly rewriting the story they told themselves. That you needed them more. That you'd come running back. that you were weak. But weakness doesn't walk away without words. Weakness doesn't choose silence over validation. Weakness doesn't rebuild itself in peace while the other person drowns in noise. That's not weakness, that's evolution. And you're not just surviving this, you're growing from it. While they try to fill the void with distractions, you're filling your life with meaning. While they seek temporary highs to forget, you're building a foundation they'll never reach again. That's what makes you different. That's why every day without you becomes a heavier weight for them to carry and a lighter load for you to let go. If this is your season, if you felt yourself rising a little more each day in silence while they quietly fall apart in theirs, then type it in the comments right now. Every day I rise. Let it be a declaration. Let it be a reminder, not just to them, but to yourself. You're not stuck in the past. You're not frozen in time. You're moving forward while they remain trapped in the shadow of what they lost. Stay with me, because next we're going deeper into the chaos their mind creates when they realize they can't figure you out, and how that mystery becomes the very thing that keeps them up at night. 7. Not knowing is driving them insane. Mystery is the fuel of desire, and silence is the spark that keeps it burning. They thought they had you figured out, every emotion, every move, every reaction. They believed they had your entire blueprint memorized. You were the predictable one, the consistent one, the stable, grounding presence they could lean on, push away, then pull back again whenever it suited them. They were sure you'd flinch, that you'd crack under the pressure of the silence, that eventually you'd break and reach out just to end the unknown. But here you are, still quiet, still calm, still gone, and now the not knowing is slowly eating them alive. See, people like that, they don't just crave control, they depend on it. It's not about love, it's about leverage. It's not about connection, it's about reassurance that they still hold some piece of you, even after they pushed you away. They want updates, signs, reactions, and when you give them none, their mind becomes the prison they never expected to enter. It starts subtle, a passing thought. I wonder what he's doing right now. But that thought doesn't fade. It grows legs. It grows teeth. Has he moved on? Is he missing me? Why hasn't he said anything? Who is he with? Why is he so okay? They pick up their phone, scroll through your old messages, maybe hover over your name, but you're silent. Not a post, not a text, not a single clue. You've become invisible, and that drives them insane. Because in a world where everyone overshares, where people post their pain for attention and document their healing for applause, you do the one thing they never expected. You disappear. You choose mystery over drama, peace over performance. That's not just confusing for them, it's unbearable. Because the truth is, people fear what they can't define. And now that they can't define you, they can't dismiss you. You're not giving them closure. You're not giving them hints. You're not giving them anything. And in that vacuum, their imagination is doing the damage for you. It's painting pictures they can't erase. It's building stories out of silence. And the scariest part, they don't know how much of it is true. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you've become everything they never believed you could be. Maybe you're with someone who actually values you. Or maybe, and this one stings the most, maybe you never needed them at all. That thought alone, it's enough to keep them awake at night. Because silence doesn't just create distance, it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is the most uncomfortable place for someone with a fragile ego. When you were predictable, they could feel powerful. But now, with no access, no control, and no understanding of where you stand, they feel powerless. That illusion of superiority? Gone, and now the person they thought they had wrapped around their finger is the one they can't stop thinking about. And you? Maybe there's still a part of you wondering if they're thinking about you, wondering if your silence is being noticed. Let me put that doubt to rest. They notice, every second of it. Every hour you don't respond. Every day you don't show up. Every moment you continue living without them, you become more powerful in their mind. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally stopped playing theirs. That's what they never saw coming, that the quiet man would be the one who taught them the loudest lesson, that your silence wouldn't be a tactic, it would be a transformation. And that transformation, it's now the mystery haunting them in every room they walk into alone. So let them wonder, let their mind spiral, let their imagination run wild. You're not here to give them peace anymore. You're here to protect your own. And in doing that, you've become something rare. A man who doesn't need attention to prove his worth. A man who doesn't chase validation. A man who lets his absence speak volumes. If this resonates with you, if your silence has turned you into the question they can't answer, then type it in the comments right now. Let them wonder. Say it with certainty, with pride. Let it be the reminder that your silence isn't empty. It's full of strength. In conclusion, silence isn't weakness, it's your greatest weapon. While they unravel in confusion, you rise in calm. You don't need to explain your worth. You live it every day. If this message hit home, like the video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today.